Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is F. Frank Jones. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Georgia who, for more than 20 years, has worked with children, adolescents, and adults to assist them with overcoming a variety of personal and difficult challenges. He also services as an adjunct instructor at a community college where he has been teaching psychology for more than 8 years. Frank is also the author of Heal and Grow, Lessons Learned on My Journey as a Mental Health Professional. So this is my brief bio of you, Frank, but the full bio will be at the end. The question that I love asking all my guests from the get-go is, how would you introduce yourself? Who is Frank in this very moment?
That is such an awesome question. And I know that's how you open your show.
Yes.
I am many things, like we all are, as far as when we're in this physical body. Like I am a husband. I am a college instructor. I am a friend. I'm a son. I'm a brother. But that's in this physical form. But I like to view myself as a spiritual being having these human experiences, these experiences that give me an opportunity to grow, to heal, and to connect with others and help them to do the same. And also, I feel like I would be missing out if I didn't also acknowledge that I'm grateful and I'm blessed. Just to be here with you in this moment, but also to be in the world and to have this opportunity and to have my health and so many other things, both mentally and physically, so many other things that I'm fortunate to have, that there are others around the world or even in my own community that aren't nearly as fortunate as fortunate as I am.
Yeah. It is the purpose of suffering to learn, or do you think there's something else greater than that?
So I think, yes, suffering can produce opportunities for growth and healing, because I think sometimes we resist the struggle because life has so many different challenges. And most of us are usually either in the midst of a challenge, just coming out of one,
Yes.
or headed toward one.
Yes.
So to me, it becomes sort of obvious that I guess we're supposed to go through things because we're supposed to grow, and we need those things. I mean, of course, there's some things that we go through that is extremely painful or unfortunate, and it doesn't feel that there's anything positive that can come from that.
Right.
And so there's certain things we just don't have the answers to or don't really understand fully at this time. But I feel for the most part, the struggle helps us to even appreciate life. I mean, we when we go through the unfortunate or difficult times, it makes us appreciate the better times. Yeah. I mean, we appreciate the sun more when it's been raining a lot. And I think that's why it's important.
Yes. What is to be mentally healthy to you, Frank?
Mentally healthy. First of all, I think mental health means different things to different people.
Right.
What makes one person mentally healthy may not be sufficient for another person. But I think if I was to be as broad and general as possible, mental health means being in a place where we are emotionally able to manage the different aspects of life, whether it be challenges, whether it be demonstrating or expressing love, whether it be being able to have peace, being able to be present in the moment that we're in, having balance.
Yeah.
It's a lot of different things that incorporate mental health. But I think sometimes people feel that you have to be perfect. Like they think, oh, I'm to be, for example, to be physically fit, you have to, some people's definition is you have to be, ripped and low body fat and your cardiovascular needs to be at a certain level. But if that's your goal, that's fine. But you can be healthy without looking like you're about to compete in a bodybuilding competition. You can be
Yes.
healthy without having to run a marathon. And so that becomes a personal choice. But it's really about being able to be balanced and deal with things in a healthy way, or as healthy as you possibly can.
Yes. You know what comes to mind a lot is, in my case, it was fear. I really,
Mm,
I had to learn how to manage fear because, I grew up with a lot of abuse as a
hmm
child. So I was
hmm
always afraid as a
hmm
child. And then, as an adolescent and a young adult, I was always afraid of everything. So that was a big one for me in being mentally healthy. So changing, of course, and changing the mindset that I had, the way of thinking that of blaming my parents for what I went through, that had to change. So
hmm
once I kind of forgave them and accepted, then it opened up the possibility of managing fear. So there was easier to see the possibilities and the options I had.
that's awesome. I think that's amazing. Being able to manage fear, I think that is a huge wall or barrier for a lot of people.
Yes.
Fear. I mean, whether
Yeah.
it's fear of if this person leaves me, fear of what if I don't succeed, fear if I don't get the right grades. That's what if I fail, if I try to open up this restaurant. Fear can be very debilitating. And to me, fear is the opposite of love.
Mm. Yes. Yeah. In your book, so again, Heal and Grow Lessons Learned on My Journey as a Mental Health Professional, you quoted Marianne Williamson,
Williamson.
and then made me think immediately about Course in Miracles because I have
Right.
copies in my house and
Right.
I have read the book, which is more than a book, right? In a
Yes.
way, it's it's beyond that. So yeah, they talk a lot about everything stems from fear or love. They're just two places to come from our
Mm-hmm.
behaviors, our thoughts. That feels very true. I hesitate to think. It feels at the body and mind level. It just feels true. I'm always asking myself, am I doing this out of fear or out of love? Where am I coming from? I'm always asking that question. I just want to make sure it's coming from love. So I would love to talk to you for a moment about that. So, what are some examples of that from your own life?
In the past, actually, this started probably when I was in my early 20s, and I wasn't even on the path that I eventually was to start taking as it relates to spiritual growth. But
Right.
there was a lot of things in life that I wouldn't do or attempt for fear of it just not working out. Like maybe if I was out and I saw a cute young lady and I was thinking maybe I should go say hi. Who knows? Maybe there'll
Yeah.
be a relationship. And I just wouldn't. And then I would get home and then I regret it and kick myself. Well, you could have at least spoke to her. What's wrong? Why are you so fearful? And I realized that by not taking chances, and that's the fear, then I may be losing out
Right.
in opportunities, wonderful opportunities, whether it's getting a great new job or falling in love. And I decided I wanted to stop living in state of fear mainly because I didn't want to have a life with regrets. I got tired of thinking, what would have happened if you would have done such and such? And I said, you know what, from now on, I'm going to do the very best I can to just say yes and reach out and overcome the fear. And it's interesting. I think it was last semester. Once a week in my class, I show a positive motivational video on YouTube. And this one particular morning, I showed a video and it was about failure.
Yeah.
And normally we don't necessarily talk about the videos, we just start class. But this time a discussion started happening organically. And the students who were ranged anywhere from 19 to 35, maybe even 40, they started discussing failure and how they try to avoid it. And then that led to a discussion about fear.
Right.
And
Right.
they shared so many of their fears. And it just reinforced, it just demonstrated to me how we prevent ourselves from experiencing all that life really has to offer when we live with that mindset.
Right. You mentioned about when it comes to managing fear, it's the decision, isn't it? Making that
Yes.
choice. And it feels like it's not just, it doesn't happen in the one moment in time.
No.
It's something that we keep, it's a decision that door is always open in a way, isn't
Mhm.
it? Of
It
fear
is.
and love.
It is. I think society, though, makes us want to live more in that state of fear, though.
Mm,
We have this habit of comparing ourselves to others, and we feel like if we don't achieve that, if we don't look like that, then we're less than, or we're a failure. And so society, even, and I think subconsciously, sometimes we send those messages even to our children. It's
mm,
almost like we communicate to them that I expect and need you to do these things or make these choices or live this way. And so then we're cautious. I've had plenty of students, not students, clients even, who, who are experiencing a lot of anxiety. As we know, a lot of people around the world are anxious.
yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of that is fear. And even in a political climate, it's like one person feels like if this person gets in office, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to us? But what if this
Right.
person gets in office? Oh, then there's another fear over there. And fear really has a way of dividing us too.
Mm, yes. Yes. That gets in the way of connection, right? We can't
Yes,
really connect as long as
fear,
we're afraid.
yes, exactly. But and I think sometimes I wonder if
Mm.
that's done on purpose, if there are some people who prefer to keep us divided and living in fear.
Yes, I have heard that before. I know it sounds like conspiracy theory, as
Hmm.
some people
Hmm.
say, but I think there's a lot of ignorance in the sense of not knowing
Yes,
oneself. So as long
yes,
as we don't know our true nature, know that we are divine, our own divinity,
yes.
then yeah, we'll be afraid. It's like being separate from our parents. Can you imagine like children feeling lonely all the time and
Hmm.
rejected or abandoned?
I'm glad you used the word ignorance because I think literally fear and
Mm.
ignorance just not knowing, ignorance of not knowing how we're all connected, ignorance of not knowing the source from which we all come from,
Yes.
that contributes to our struggles on this planet and as human beings.
Yes, personally and collectively.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, at all levels. Absolutely. Let me go back to basics here before we tap into
Okay.
your books. There's so many. I mean, we're already talking about some of the topics, but how I know in the book you mentioned that too, why and how you became a therapist.
Mhm.
But for the sake of this conversation, I would love for the audience to know, people who will come across this video, why did you choose to become a therapist, Frank?
Well, it was a very interesting journey, which technically starts back to when I was even a little boy, and I read my first Spider-Man comic book, and I felt the idea of being a hero just seemed so
Mm,
awesome and great. Like, wow, I'd like to one day be able to impact people that way and literally save people. But then I got older and went to college and went majored in radio and television and worked in radio actually ultimately, and even
right.
got in television. But during that whole time, I was always trying to find ways to help people, to serve people. A lot of people who become therapists, they were the person who their friends went to for their problems. And that was me starting back in high school and college. And it was always in the back of my mind. Ironically, I took one psychology class when I was doing my undergraduate studies.
Yeah.
And I'm embarrassed to say I got a D in that class. And at that point, I realized, I said, I guess I'm not supposed to be a therapist. And
Right.
I went back to focusing on television and radio. But of course, here I am. I guess when I was working in television, I was living in LA and I was working on a variety of television shows. And this is what literally put me on this track. And one of the last television shows I ever worked on was Divorce Court. I'm not sure if you're familiar
Mm,
with the show,
no.
but it was where you book guests on the show who are interested in filing for divorce, and it didn't resonate. I didn't connect with it spiritually. I was looking forward to quitting, to be honest with you. But
Right.
then I was told it'd be difficult to get out the contract. But the bottom line is I was able to gain something out of going to that job because some of the individuals who I was speaking to who were struggling in their relationships, they would tell me at the end of our call, even if I couldn't book them as a guest, they would say, you know what? Thank you for just listening to me.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I've had anyone to do that. And they just felt supported. And that became my new goal every day I went into work. Maybe I'll be a blessing by just being an ear. And then, unfortunately, there were some layoffs because this was during around the time of 9/11. It was difficult to book guests. And at that point, I decided, I think you really should revisit that whole idea about being a therapist. And once I got released, because part of the layoffs, I went to grad school. And that started me on this journey.
Right. You see, it seems like whatever we are doing now, it's has chosen us in a way, isn't it? It goes back
Yes.
to
Yes.
that body mind alignment. It's almost
Yes.
like the universe or God looking for conduits, tools, people that could do certain jobs. We call it a purpose, a calling, but that's what
Hmm.
it feels like that. It really
Yeah,
does.
it
Yeah.
does. And I notice when people, even when I counsel people, there are those who I think intuitively sometimes fight the path that they should be on. And I can tell that because they talk about they struggle so much. It's like they're swimming against the tide. But when you're on purpose and I feel like you're doing what you're meant to do, it's a lot easier.
Right. Right.
Things fall into place. The people you need to meet show up when they're supposed to show up. It just feels so much easier than trying to push through and
Right.
grind and fight and end up doing something that perhaps you were not put on this planet to do.
Right. So, from your experience, personal and professional, what makes life challenging? What's the most challenging aspects of life? I would love to hear from you because you talk a lot about challenges, right? And it's true. We had
Mhm.
them, we are having them. Well, we are probably solving some of them now, and then we'll find some challenge in the future. All of us will. So, yeah, what makes life so challenging?
I think we do.
Mm.
I think it's our
Yes.
thoughts. I think it's it's like we mentioned earlier, our ignorance, our fear, and our resistance. We push back on things when they don't manifest or look the way we think they should look in our minds. And that creates a very big challenge for us because we all have a picture of how we
Mm.
think something is supposed to look. Our marriage, our wedding, our job, our career, our families. And then when they don't, we have a problem. And then we get angry, we get frustrated, disappointed, depressed, anxious, all because life hasn't unfolded the way we thought it should.
Wow, that's a beautiful answer. We make life challenging because life is just life, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
And if you look to nature, when you look to nature, everything about nature seems to happen so naturally.
Right.
It doesn't appear that there's a lot of struggle going on. I mean, yes, there are things that happen. Yes, a caterpillar may have to struggle to get out the cocoon, but when it does,
Yeah.
it has wings and can fly now.
Yes. Yeah. It's been better.
Yeah,
Right.
it's been
Right.
transformed into something even greater through that little struggle that it went through, but that's natural.
Right. You mentioned that, and a lot of people talk about spiritual. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. You
Hmm.
heard about that. So many of us
Yes.
have. So somebody said a little bit differently. That kind of changed that perspective for me in the mind.
Hmm.
It's almost like God. It's God trying to be human. So that would look like this. So
Yes.
God, in every aspect, in every form, trying to be itself or become itself. So it would be a challenge. It wouldn't be easy because of the limitations of this realm, the physical
Hmm.
realm.
Hmm.
So I don't know. That sounds very. It doesn't sound abstract to me. It really sounds like something that it's very much possible. I know
Yeah.
it sounds spiritual, but also sounds scientific. It's almost like yeah, like energies trying to become something.
Well, okay. So first of all, I want to say that I'm sure you're familiar with the Serenity Prayer.
Yes,
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change things. I love the Serenity Prayer because it's about understanding there's some things we have control over.
right.
There's some things that we don't. And we're better off if we can accept when we are able to do what. And I've told clients before when they've been talking about their challenges or their issues, I go, you know what? We may not realize it, but deep down inside, there may be a part of us that actually wants the challenges, that wants the struggle. And the reason why I say that is because I would then ask them, who would go watch a film or movie where when it opens up, the lead character has everything they want? They have they're wealthy, they're loved, they're popular, they drive their dream cars. You get to the middle of the film, they still have everything perfect, and the
Hmm.
film ends just the way it started. They're wealthy, they're loved, they're popular. No one would see that film
Huh.
because they didn't see the main character overcome. And whether it's a comedy or drama, no matter what it is, we see the main character have some situation they have to deal with. And that's what keeps us engaged in that film. And I think to some degree, that's what keeps us engaged in life. When we have these unexpected things that come up, they add to the story in which we are the stars.
Yeah, that's very much it. Then we're here all trying to tell a story. And do you often ask that question to your clients or people around you? Like, what story you here to tell? Is that one of your questions?
Well, I know sometimes I don't, I mean, I have asked, but sometimes I try to discover what is their story. I try to
Right.
hear their narrative. I want to hear how do they think? How do they see themselves? And sometimes I will ask clients about who do you think you are, or what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Do you feel like you have a purpose? Do you feel connected? I'll try to explore things from a spiritual perspective just to see what answers they'll provide.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but in doing so, they're telling me the story that is in their head, how they view themselves in the world that we are in.
Right. Yes. And maybe that's the reason I always begin with the question of who you are. Like, how would
Hmm.
you? That question never left me. It might be for that reason too. Who knows?
Right.
Although I'm not doing therapy here, that's not the purpose. Just to have fun, meaningful fun. That's the whole
Right.
point. And learn, of course, from it.
Hmm.
Connect and learn. So, going back, going back or beginning to talk about your book, Heal and Grow. The title, it's very evocative, it's very inviting, and it
Hmm.
feels healing just to look at it and to say those words. Did that come to you at once, or you had to think? It was a process to have the title.
It was a little bit of a process, but I knew what I wanted people to feel or experience as a result of picking up the book. I wanted them to
Right.
heal and grow while sharing my journey. I the people who helped me to publish the book, they had ideas about a title, and so there was this back and
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah.
I would present a title, and they would say, "No, we're not sure about that." I guess they would take it to a staff meeting or something, and then they would send it back. Well, the team thinks this, and there was this back and forth, and they would say titles they thought were good enough, and then at some point, this title came to me, and regardless of what they said, I was satisfied. I was like, no, this is it. I felt it. It felt right. It sounded right. I embraced it, and I emailed them the title, and then they came back and they too said, yes,
Mm,
this is the one.
yes. Yeah, I love the way you said that. It felt right. It felt
Hmm.
right. Or that was it. Because we know, of course, intuitively we know.
Exactly, exactly.
Did you set an intention? And talk to me about the purpose of writing the book. Have you always thought about becoming a writer? Was there something in your mind?
I always thought it would be a really cool experience to write a book, but I
Yes.
had no idea what book would be about. Would it be a nonfiction or fiction? Because I have a little bit of a creative side. Would it even be science fiction? And it I nothing came to mind. And then literally about probably 4 years ago, it was right before the pandemic hit. It was before something said, "This is the book you need to write." And from the moment that came to me, all the thoughts, the ideas, the concepts that I wanted to get across, they just started flowing. They just kept coming. I started walking around with note cards to try to, because things would just
Yeah.
come to me at
Yes.
weird times. And then sometimes I wouldn't have paper. So then I started putting all my thoughts in my cell phone. Middle of the night, I changed positions and something would just pour into my head. And I knew I had to put it in my phone. And it just it's like once I accepted the task, the mission, okay, I will write a book and this is what it will be about. It just felt organic.
Yeah. It went back to that flow state,
Except
right?
the
And
flow
then,
state. Like I said, I would have 5 years ago, I would have never thought about writing this book or writing any book 5 years ago.
right.
But 4 years ago, things changed.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing. So I love one of my practices going back to that place. I call return to peace. So always go back. In meditation, you have that experience, It's a space that it's just yeah, we cannot even describe it. I would say peaceful, the word that you use, peaceful,
Mhm.
returning to peace.
I feel like it's a returning back to where we're from or
Right.
what we really know.
Right. So talk to me for a moment about that. When did you uncover this truth about connectivity and interconnection, that everything is connected already in a sense, and the importance of that? Was it a moment in time too, Frank, or a realization, or this was again a process?
It was a process. One of my relationships when I was in my probably mid 20s, it ended and I was heartbroken.
Yeah.
But as a result of trying to heal myself from the heartbreak, I reached out for anything I could try to grab. So that meant trying to find authors and books and cassettes at the time, and trying to find maybe a church that would help anything. I was desperate, but it ultimately put
Mm.
me on that path of exposing me to things like connection, how we're all connected, and how it's important to acknowledge that as part of it. And so that's really how it sort of happened. It was like gradual because I basically got addicted to trying to grow and improve
Mm.
myself and learn more about me. It Going to a bookstore was tough to leave without having three books under my arms. I was like, I keep buying books. I would have to make myself not go into a bookstore.
Yes.
And this was during
Yes.
the days when there were more bookstores and people weren't, buying all of their books through online services. But yeah, it's been a gradual process to really learn these things and experience them, especially from some of the authors. And I call them my book mentors that I followed.
Yes. Yes. Some books, they are, well, people, yeah, that goes back to connection. They are
Mhm.
teachers. Yeah. I always look
Mhm.
at them as teachers too. I love the dedication too. That really caught my attention to
Yeah.
Carla Edmondson,
Hmm.
my cousin, and more importantly, my friend. So
Yeah.
I would love for you to talk a little bit more about her because I know there was a beautiful inspiration. And then the way you talk about mental health, how so many lives have been lost and how we have been affected, and so many
Right.
people have been affected in the sense of deep suffering or perhaps even unnecessary suffering because of
Hmm.
undetected, unhealed mental issues.
Okay. Well, starting out with Carla. So when I lived in Los Angeles, now just for clarity, Carla is not my biological cousin,
Right.
but she
Right.
became my cousin. She became my family and someone very important who I love dearly.
Yes.
I met her in LA, and right away, from the moment we met, we were actually doing extra work on a television show. I wasn't even
Right.
working full time.
Yeah.
And from the moment we met, I don't know why, something in me told me to tell her, for some reason, I'm supposed to look out for you.
Ah.
I had no idea where it came from, but I said it. And from that point forward, we just grew closer and closer. And I did look out for her. And if she was struggling financially, I helped. I developed a wonderful relationship with her parents, my Uncle Walter and Auntie Joyce. We're still in touch to this very day. And we were just there for each other. She was from the Bay Area. But unfortunately, at one point, and she was a little younger than I, and she was just an amazing person, full of energy and brightness, and I loved her greatly. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, she was murdered. Um, and even to this day, that loss still kind of haunts me, and it still kind of hurts. I do feel like her spirit still is with me, and as well as those who loved her and she loved. Um, and that also continued to strengthen the bond that I have with her parents, my uncle and my aunt. And it was very devastating. And there, even right now, there's a certain song, I think it's a Mariah Carey song. If I hear it, it'll be tough to hold back the tears.
Right.
But and I've never forgotten her. And there's often I felt when I was in grad school, there were times when I was really struggling to stay up and finish an assignment or prepare for an exam, and I was just wanting to turn the towel. And then I just felt a sense of inspiration and energy, and it felt like it was Carla. And sometimes I find myself saying, "Thank you, Carla," during times when I've struggled, especially when I was in grad school, because she had she transitioned probably about a year before I started going to grad school. And I felt in a way, even going back to school, was I was honoring and providing a tribute to her, because she had never finished school, college that is. And so
Yeah.
she had started talking about going back to school. And I thought it would be really great. Like, she's going back to undergrad, and I'm going to grad school, and we'd be doing that together. But unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Mm.
And so
Wow.
it just made sense to dedicate the book to her because of what she meant to me. And during the time when I lived in LA, I didn't have a lot of friends. I mean, gradually over time, I did build a little friend network, but she was family to me,
Mm.
and she will always be family, and her family will always be family to me.
Right. Do you have that understanding that we never die, that our spirits, our soul, I don't know, we have so many names, mind continuation, some energy,
Mhm.
it moves on and comes back in a new body or it stays here? Is that something that, do you believe?
Yes, I believe the spirit lives on. I believe
Right.
it's these bodies, these outer shells, that at some point have an expiration date. But I believe the spirit just goes back from whence it came, and that um, when we break down as far as subatomic particles, we're all just little bursts of energy. And scientifically, if we're really just made up of energy, we know science energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Right.
And so for me, and I don't, like to impose my thoughts on anyone. I think people are free to believe what they want to believe. And I would never push these views on my clients or my students. But for me, I gain a great deal of comfort knowing that this is just a temporary stop. This is the film or the movie we decided to be in for
Mm.
now before we return back home.
Yes. There's something that chapter one, what caught my attention.
Chapter one was lessons learned about people in therapy.
Yes, right. So there we talk a lot about therapy, and it's very helpful for people who want to are thinking about it, contemplating
Mhm.
the idea. So one of the things that caught my attention, you're very detailed. I love everything about it, obviously. It looks like there was so much work, and I love how generous you are, giving all those details, sharing your life too, your life experiences. But barriers to inner peace, that was a section that immediately caught my attention. What would you say they are? What are the blocks in our inner peace?
Well, it goes back to what we spoke about earlier: fear,
Yes, that's a big one.
ignorance, and division. I think when we divide ourselves from one another, we have no idea the damage we're doing. Whether you're talking about the teenager who feels separated from his peers and contemplates suicide, that's separation. And I have a saying in the book that I also placed on a T-shirt on my website,
Yeah, I
and
love that.
the saying is the ego divides, spirit unites. And it's when we live in our ego, that's our most immature side. That's the side of us that always thinks we're right, that puts ourselves first, that's maybe materialistic. That's living in the ego. But when we live in spirit, we're thinking about others. We're focusing on others. We want other people to be happy, to be healthy, to be whole.
Mm.
And so I find myself sometimes, if a thought goes through my head, I'll ask myself, am I living in my ego or am I living in spirit? And if we could just choose to make a conscious effort to live in spirit and think about others, at least as much as we do ourselves, I think we could change the world overnight practically.
Yes, yes, a billion times to that truth. That's one of the questions I ask so many people here. Are we somehow on the path? How far are we to come to this understanding? To finally get to know our own selves, and break through the fear barrier and return home, but stay here in a sense of bring heaven to earth.
Yes, and I think that's possible but we have to, if we don't come together, I don't know how that happens.
Yes. So people talk about consciousness. We need to change the way,
Yeah.
we see ourselves in the world. So it seems like ignorance has been, it's a product of the mind. So the mind has this very interesting ability to divide, right? Oh,
Yep.
this is that,
That's the ego talking. That's the ego talking.
the
Hmm.
duality. And then maybe we have been taking the mind too seriously, and then we think that that's the truth about this reality.
And that's the ignorance.
Yes,
That's
right.
the
We've seen that
Yes.
as, yeah, that's it. And that's right. Oh my God. And that's why I just go back to spirituality every time because we need that. We do need to go back to divinity, to our own divinity. And once
Mhm.
we are there, then everything changes. Yeah, this reality will be completely different. I heard that this is happening already. I don't know because I'm not really, the world is almost has faded for me. And I live in a very small kind of,
Mhm.
doing what's present
Right.
here and not really focus on anything else. So I don't know, but some people say that it's been changing.
I have heard that as well, that we're moving in a more spiritual direction. I'm not sure. I don't know. Sometimes
Right.
I see signs that that is true based upon the individuals and the messages they're trying to put out there. And then sometimes I see more of people just embracing their ego.
Hmm.
So it's hard to really get a gauge which direction we're moving in. Are we becoming more socially conscious and connected, or are we continuing to be more divided? Like I said, I see both.
Yeah. Yeah. Chapter 2. So lessons learned about anxiety and depression. That's a really important topic. So my question for you is, because I read in your book, you say, about 7 years ago, I began practicing meditation and yoga on a daily basis. I
Mhm.
noticed how often various challenges in my life ultimately were resolved, often resulting in an even better outcome that I could ever imagined. So, is it something that you clearly seen the effect of the impact of meditation and yoga when it comes to anxiety and depression?
Absolutely, for me. I can't speak for everyone else,
Yeah.
but I feel like when I was able to practice yoga and meditation consistently, because there was a time where I was doing it sporadically, maybe once or twice a week. But when it became ingrained and a part of my routine and my daily life, I just became more at peace.
Yes.
I feel like that it really helped me to see some things clearer. Sometimes things will come, even to this day, sometimes things come to me during my meditation. I've had to stop my meditation multiple times because of my book. Something would come to me in the midst of the meditation. This needs to be in the book. And then I'll be like, okay, write it down or put it in my phone, then return back to meditation. Even my wife, she would probably say, earlier in our marriage, she kind of saw me more of a worrier, somebody who had anxiety. Like I was a little bit, I don't want this to happen. I don't want that to happen. And I want you to be safe and don't be like, and so I was always worried about what might happen. But
Yes.
she would even say herself, and she has said this, she has said, you know what, over the years, you've went from a worrier to a warrior. And And the more that I'm able to grow and learn, this is why I keep working on myself, then those around me, my loved ones, and the people I serve, my clients and my students, they get to benefit as well
Right.
from my growth.
Right. Yes. A billion times to that. Teaching from becoming the message and not just delivering messages. Yeah.
Right.
Being the message itself. And you come across very much this way. Yeah. Very, your mind feels very stable and peaceful. There's this beautiful presence about you.
And I definitely think meditation and yoga played a great, and it's not even, and meditation, as I'm sure you're aware, there's so many different ways to meditate. And it's just, I
Yeah.
created my own method that works for me.
Yes. Right. And
And
how is it? Can you describe that, Frank, for a minute?
well, it's so like I said, we know clearly there's different ways to meditate. So my meditation is
Yeah.
a combination. It's like a hodgepodge of just eclectic. So there's a part of my meditation where I'm expressing gratitude.
Mhm.
There's a part of my meditation where I'm trying to send positive energy, thoughts, and loves to those I know and even to those I don't know. There's a part of my meditation where I'm just fully present in the moment. I'm being aware of my senses. What am I seeing, feeling, tasting, touching? Um, and then there's a part of my meditation where I'm visualizing the day or what I hope will happen during the day.
Mm.
So there's like these different stages that I go through during and my brain is used to the pattern. Like I do this, and then it just transitions to this phase. Okay, now I'm grateful. Okay, now I'm focusing. Now I'm sending positive energy to loved ones, and now I'm envisioning how I would like my day, and even part of my future down the road. I'm envisioning what I would like that to look like as well. And then once I finish the meditation, then I have two yoga routines that I alternate every day. I do it at home, and one day it's this routine, and the next day it's the other. And that's how I start my day.
Right. And that changes everything. Yeah, has been my experience too. I call it contemplation, but it has to do with reflection and meditation too. But do you teach to your clients the meditation method that you engage in?
Because I don't feel qualified to necessarily teach meditation, because
Yeah.
like I said, I created my own method that works for me, but I definitely bring up the topic and I explain to them what different types of, like, whether it's, the walking meditation or guided meditation or sounds or I try to expose. I even do it with my students. I try to share with them different types or methods,
Yeah.
and if they feel like giving it a try, then I support them on that. I never want anybody to feel pressured. Um, but yeah, I will definitely, I incorporate a certain amount of spirituality with my clients. I typically let them know that I'm all about health of the mind, body, and spirit.
Yes, yeah. That's another section in your book that really caught my attention. I mentioned off record, and I believe there was chapter 7. Yeah, is that under chapter 7? Hopefully it is. Lessons learned about self care. Yes.
Yes, that's chapter 7. Yes.
The mind, body, spirit connection, nurturing the mind, body, and spirit. And you talk about nature too. So, yeah, the walking meditation would be in nature would be wonderful.
Yes.
It is wonderful, right?
Hmm.
And then you said something interesting. You say, I think of your mind, or think of your mind, body, and spirit like three legs of a stool.
Yes.
And that's true. How could it support itself, right? It'll be out of balance without
Yes.
one. So that's a very good metaphor. I like the way you use metaphors too. You did use another one, the boxes we carry.
Hmm.
I would love for you to share this one with the audience too. What
You know,
is,
it's so
yeah.
funny. When I first have my initial session with a client, with a new client or a couple
Yeah.
or a family, I end up telling them how I function and how I work in therapy. And I always give them a heads up. I speak with a lot of metaphors, so be ready.
Yes.
So, specifically about the boxes we carry, this
Yeah.
kind of ties in with stress, anxiety, depression. Metaphorically, I think that we all have our boxes that we carry. These are our stressors. These are our challenges, our hurdles. But everybody doesn't have the same load. Some people have gigantic, large boxes.
Yeah.
Some people have a couple of small boxes. Some people have a combination of large and small boxes that they're all trying to carry and make it through life. The thing is, though, we have to
Yeah.
learn, or we have to come into awareness that sometimes we might be carrying too many boxes. And we may need to put one or two down, and might be some boxes we need to put down and never pick up again.
Right.
And it's just, we need that awareness to know which boxes it's time to let go of, and which ones are fine because, we've accepted the role and the responsibility of carrying these boxes. They help us to gain strength and we're fine. But we've all had some boxes that we know they were dragging us down and making it more difficult to proceed or walk through life.
Yes, it's so true. And it makes me think immediately about the mind and how it holds on to ideas, belief systems, and I'd say even that originated in trauma. For example, in my case, I had so many of those mental boxes. They were just kind of really keeping me very small, limited, and sad, and depressed, and anxious, and everything else in between. So, yes, it makes me think about them more than anything else. But I know that material things will also do that as well. If we
Right.
have,
Yes.
car, house that we can afford, and it just to,
It
yeah,
becomes one of those boxes that we're trying to carry that's really
that's true.
producing stress, anxiety, and possibly even depression because we're carrying that too when maybe we shouldn't carry that box, or we need, or at least put it down for a little while.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It makes so much sense. So thank you for that too. You're so insightful and wise in so many ways. I
Well,
have
thank
way
you.
too many notes here. You also said something that caught my attention. If we truly want to change, grow, and heal, it is extremely beneficial to be open minded. So that's another one that's huge, right? Being open, being able to be receptive, to listen, basically curious about how can I live differently in a way that can bring me, my life can be more peaceful, healthier, happier. So because the options are here, we have so many options.
So many.
But the first step is to be open minded. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I love that. And I love one of the aspects of having an open mind for me has been being curious, always like asking
Yes.
questions and being very curious. That really changed everything.
I just think being open minded is so important. That's, if you're not open, then that means you're closed. And then that,
Yeah,
to me, that's part of your ego, possibly saying that I don't need this, I don't need that, I already have all the answers. But true wisdom for me is knowing that I don't know everything,
yeah.
but I'm open to learning, or at least hearing.
Yes, 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 yes. And then even if we disagree, if that's something that doesn't
Hmm.
resonate, it's
Right.
still being open to be present to that and kind of not make it a conflict out of it. There's
Exactly.
something about that, right?
Exactly. Open without conflict. Yes.
Yes, right. So I like the way you talk about words too. We're almost at the end. Oh my God, Frank, I will talk to you forever about, about your book and everything else in between. But I love what you said about words. You said words matter so much that they can be one of several keys to positive change and growth. And that's so true. The words we use to be more mindful with them, right?
I'm such a proponent of words, which is one reason I really enjoy the way you start your show, because I have told clients, especially younger clients, teenagers and kids, I'll tell them, I go, let me tell you a secret. I'm going to give you the most powerful words in the universe. And I usually write it on a dry erase board. And the
Yeah.
words that I place on the board are I am. And I draw a blank space.
Yeah.
And because I think whatever you put in that space over time will become your reality.
Yes.
If you say, I am unlovable, over time, that may be what is manifested.
Right.
Because I believe our brain and our ego want us to be right all the time. So if you say I'm unlovable, your brain is going to say, okay, let me provide some supporting evidence that you are unlovable. But if you say, I am a light, I am drawing to me those people who will love me, it just changes everything. And I feel the words we think have power, but I think maybe even more the words we actually verbally say.
Yes.
Because now we're speaking it into the universe.
Yes.
So yeah, I yes, it definitely. And so because our vocal cords, they vibrate, and that just puts things in motion. And so I will definitely sometimes work with, especially young people. I try to get them to be aware of the words they're using and try to come up with other words. But especially be careful what you're putting after the phrase I am.
There's something that you quoted Brian Tracy. I don't know who he is, but
Mhm.
it says there, all negative emotions, especially anger, depend for their very existence on your ability to blame someone or something else for something in your life that you're not happy about. That's very powerful too.
Yes,
Taking responsibility for our own, for everything,
that's
right?
tough.
For our healing.
It's so much easier to just blame somebody else or
Yes.
someone or a situation or society for our issues. And it's. I remember when I lived in California and I wasn't happy with the way my life was going. I came to that realization that it was because of me. And I took a little piece of cardboard and I wrote a note. I wrote something and placed it on my computer screen so I would see it every day. And it said, you are responsible for the way your life is right now. And every time I sat at that computer, I felt like I was getting a punch in the stomach.
Yes, I can imagine.
But it was like,
Yes.
oh, it's me. It's me. It's my fault that I'm in this situation. So I'm the reason I'm not making more money. I was like, oh,
Right.
yeah, it was that every day I sat at the computer. Oh, those words. Here's another punch.
Yes. It's freeing at the same time,
Yeah,
right,
it
Frank,
is.
too?
Yeah,
To take
yeah.
responsibility. You see, that might be the foundation of good relationships, healthy ones, with
Mhm,
ourselves and
mhm.
others, right? To take
Yes,
responsibility. It's maturity.
it's definitely maturity. And you mentioned expectations. I do a premarital course,
Yeah.
and I have like each session. It's about 8 courses. Each session has a different focus. There's communication. There's intimacy.
Yeah.
But one of the sessions is called expectations
Yeah.
because often people get married, and I think both individuals need to know what the other's expectations for marriage are. What is your expectation of how this is supposed to look? Because later on I counsel couples and I'm discovering people are saying things like, I thought this was going to change once we got married. That was an expectation, but it wasn't spoken about prior to.
That's a big one. I know people talk a lot about communication, but I think
Mhm.
expectations, that might be the first one. Yeah.
That's
That's
that
a huge
is
one. I agree.
what do you expect of that other person once you're
I
married?
agree.
What do you expect this union to look like? What do you expect your future to look like together?
Wow. You see, even doing that before we engage in long-term relationship would
Hmm.
be so healthy
Oh,
and helpful.
that's a really important session in my premarital course. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it feels like it. Wow, you're doing so much to help other people.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
Thank you, Frank. So I love also the attributes for healthy and happy relationships. You outlined there in your
Hmm.
book the importance of healthy, positive relationships. I mean, there's so much. It's amazing. I love the chapter about self care. That's a powerful one. Why don't we make self care a priority? Question mark.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a question that we should be asking ourselves. People who are not engaging, right, with self care, which to me stems from self love. It always goes back to see that understanding that we are worth it, right? That's why not. We are. It's a wonderful adventure to be here in this body mind. So why
It
now
is.
explore it in the best way possible?
I guess when it comes to self care, what I try to get people to understand is that self care is not selfish.
I
People think that if I do these things for me, then I'm not doing what I need to do for other people. But in reality, to me, it's the opposite. When you take time to feed yourself, take care of your mind, your body, your spirit, you're in a better place to
mm,
then serve them. So in reality, when you engage in self care, those around you, those you care about, and those you love, they will benefit the most from you doing for you.
God, yeah. You see, we do need to be reminded of that because for some reason we just forget ourselves a lot of times.
Because we get so many, I have to do this, I have to do that, all these
Yep.
have to do's, and not enough I want to do's.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's a big one too.
Hmm.
And then, you made me laugh when that section in your book at self care, I think at the end, I'm not sure where you say, don't forget to breathe. That was like a
Yes.
beautiful reminder too.
Yes.
And I remember like taking a very deep breath there, like, oh gosh, we forget that too.
Yeah, we do. That's one of the quickest interventions to help with self care. Just pause and take some deep breaths.
Yeah. I did. It was like in the middle of doing something a little too quickly. And then that was a beautiful reminder. I often quote Ron Dass, he was a spiritual teacher, modern spiritual teacher.
Hmm.
He said, we all walk in each other home.
I like that.
Me too. When I read that somewhere or heard him saying, I'm like, wait a minute, that's true. We are helping each other. That's what your work, what you're doing, remind me of. We are doing exactly that, walking each other home. So thank you so much again, Frank, for your beautiful presence in this reality and the work and for saying yes again to meeting me today. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you for having me on your show. And once again, thank you for doing what you're doing, providing a platform for other people to come and share their insights and their knowledge and try to serve others through their journey, through their experiences, through their thoughts. It's really great what you're doing. And
Thank you.
that's a reflection of who you are.
Yes, I love that. I have to say, I always say that I love it because it's true. I mean, it's just so much meaningful fun. And then I always wanted to do that. I want to interact with other humans and at a deeper, meaningful level, not just small conversations. And I can't because I was not good at it. I was really not good at it. I still am not good at it. So before we say goodbye, I want to mention I went on your website and I saw you mentioned earlier about the t-shirts, the hoodies, and the mugs. They all have beautiful messages, and that one really caught my attention. Ego divides, spirit
Spirit
unites.
unites. Hmm.
That's yeah, I love that. And then heal and grow, the other messages are. And then strength and kindness. That's another one. I mean, we have been taught to be strong, to be this and that, and then kindness. Just leave kindness for another time.
Kindness gets pushed
Right.
back on the back burner. It's not something that people are really focusing on trying to do. I don't feel like we teach kids or even role model kindness the way we should for kids.
Right. And that should be actually the foundation, right, of our actions, of
Yes.
everything we do and say and think. Yes, that's one of my guiding principles. Yeah, kindness. So thank you for having that message there too.
It's my
And I
pleasure.
want to mention your website. So francisjones.com. That will
Right.
be on the podcast notes. It
Okay.
will be easy to click, will be clickable.
Okay.
And would you like to mention about your services, Frank? I was not 100% sure. What are they? What are you offering at this time? Besides the book, of course. The link will be here from Amazon and your website.
Well, for those who are in Georgia, I do individual, couples, and family therapy. I have to be honest, right now, it's a little on the full side,
Yeah.
but I do that. And like I mentioned, I teach a basic psychology course at Gwinnett Tech College here in Georgia as well. And I try to help out people any way I can. I'm always usually mentoring some people. I feel like I'm always having someone under 30 that I'm mentoring. I have two right now. They're
Yeah.
not clients. They're people who I
Yeah.
talk to on a regular basis to try to help support them through whatever it is they might be doing. And then, of course, I can be reached through the website, francisjones.com, if somebody wants to reach out and they have a question or something.
Yes. So I'll have that there. So this platform is titled The Freedom to Feel. And usually I ask two ending questions. One, what is freedom to you? That's one question. And the other one is, what three experiences you wish everyone to have before they die, before they leave the body? So you can choose the question.
Oh,
Which
I can choose
question?
one or the other?
Yeah, one or the other. Which one do you feel more? Let's say, which one resonates more with you?
The second one, but there's three parts. So give me those three parts again.
Yes, yeah. So, what three experiences you wish everyone to have before they die, before they leave the body?
Before people transition, I think one thing I would hope that everybody experiences is true love, unconditional love, feeling love without any expectations attached to it.
Yeah,
I hope that people feel the connection that we have to one another. And finally, I hope that people are able to experience peace.
yeah. Wow, those are profound ones that lead to the feeling of freedom, doesn't it? So it goes back to that, yeah,
Yes, it
that
does.
question, freedom.
It does.
Love, I hear that a lot, and it's always a beautiful reminder. Like for me, to always love deeper. Always go deeper when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to that concept of love.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much again for your
Thank you
beautiful
again.
presence and everything that you represent in this
Thank
reality.
you.
And we'll talk soon. Bye for
Yes.
now.
Okay.
Bye for
Bye.
now, Frank.